Hi, I'm Paul, and this is Perrduction. I haven't even put out my channel intro video yet, despite the fact that I filmed a bunch of stuff for this channel. And yet I wanted to make this video because if I want movies to be my life, I want to be in dialogue with movies as they're coming out and as people are getting to discuss them. And I want to say what I want to say because, quite frankly, I want a record of what my thoughts are on certain things. Sometimes I forget. A lot of times I'll see movies and write something down in some random notepad, and I'll forget about it until I need to look that up or need to refer back to that for some reason or another. So April 11th was a big day for movies, for me at least, and I got to see two movies that I was very excited about this year. I got to see The Amateur and I got to see Warfare. I'm gonna go through The Amateur first just because it's fresher in my mind. I just got finished seeing it, and then we'll go on to Warfare after that. So The Amateur, I kind of was reticent to see it because I knew that it was reviewed as kind of like an exact middle of the road type of movie, but I don't know, I love Rami Malek, and something about my Mr. Robot fandom, I love Rami Malek sitting at a computer, so I thought, you know, I have to at least give this a shot. And I found that a lot of what people said about it was accurate. It was a very competently made, it felt very put together, and I didn't really see a lot of drops in logic as far as spy movie and weird spy tropes go, but something about it failed to connect with me, and I don't know what it was. All the acting was very good, the cinematography was gorgeous. I especially liked a lot of the kind of like glancing lights that you would see during the night shoots, and especially in the club scenes and stuff like that. But it just wasn't quite all there for me, but I can't quite articulate why. The Rami Malek sitting at computers stuff is so tried and true, and Mr. Robot did such an excellent job of it, that seeing him sit at a computer where there's all these graphic displays and stuff like that just felt off, and there's so much of that it was kind of overborne into the structure of the movie. I loved that they kind of left him every once in a while and they would hang out with Holt McCallany's character, or, you know, Lawrence Fishburne or anyone like that, because I did find those characters compelling. Especially, I would have loved a little bit maybe more with Holt McCallany, just because his character was so corrupt and kind of devious, I guess. There was a part of me that really wanted more from what Rami Malek was doing, because it seemed like during the process of him doing all these killings, he didn't really have a really serious character arc. He remained at the end this kind of broken, sad kind of character, whereas they attempt to kind of give him a nice ending where he's finally doing something at the end that he has kind of wanted to do his whole life. But it doesn't feel like the plot of the movie resulted in any sort of character arc with him, whereas I think there's a lot of opportunity for a character arc to develop around either hope, by virtue of the fact that, you know, he does what he does, I won't give away the plot, or cynicism if they maybe had him killing all those guys for an internal CIA reason that he didn't fully understand or something like that. So it just, you know, the characterization I think was the big thing for me. Also, I feel like because we just saw Black Bag earlier this year, there could have been a lot more kind of on the ground cinematography. I feel like Black Bag felt very grounded in a way that this didn't. This felt like, oh, we have to do the dolly up, we have to do the crane shot, the jib, whatever, because it's a big budget movie. And I feel like focusing on the character of Rami Malek, he's a really good actor, he can handle stuff like that, would have kind of served the movie more. But I won't say too much more about it. The cinematography was gorgeous, the music I thought served it nicely, the kills were very cool, and I did like how they didn't spend a lot of time killing. There wasn't a lot of action. I would have probably even cut some of the action, but the way it was a talky film, I wish they would have kind of leaned into a little bit more the way Black Bag did. Black Bag sold itself as a action thriller, but it was really a talky drama. I feel like this could have even dialed down the action thriller a little bit and focused on that kind of personal story of loss and finding purpose in loss. It's apropos that Jon Bernthal is in this movie because the Punisher character finds purpose in avenging his loss, whereas I don't know that it reads really well to the audience that Rami Malek got any sort of closure or purpose from what he's doing in the movie. I would really ironically like to read the book now, but I probably won't. Just missed opportunity in a few areas. They should have either really leaned into the talky portion and just been like, this is gonna be a drama, or they should have really leaned into the action. It kind of didn't seem like it knew what it was, but it was very competently made and very gorgeous to look at, which is kind of my big thing with movies. I want them to be gorgeous to look at. I like candy on the screen, and this definitely provided a decent amount of that. Warfare, however, I think was one of the most interesting and beautiful and horrifying movies I've seen in a very long time. I don't think I've seen anything like it, and I consider myself a connoisseur of like war film, and I saw it on a lark. I heard the interview with Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza on The Big Picture with Sean Fennessy, and the way they described the separation of duties. I don't think this is an exact quote, but I remember Alex Garland saying something to the effect of, I didn't have a lot of input with the actors or with the set design, or he named a couple other departments that he just wasn't involved in. And it seems like to me that says that Alex Garland was doing shot choice, set pieces, and being a big time supervisor in the editing room. So this movie kind of hits you over the head in a way that it's hard to articulate. It's better if you see it in theaters. I would actually really recommend seeing Warfare in theaters because it is such a kind of immersive way of being in this battle. And as you may or may not know, they took the story or lack thereof from an actual event, and they compiled all the memories of these guys who were actually there to kind of stitch together what became this movie. And I gotta say, they filmed it in what you kind of feel for a decent amount of the movie is like a verite style. They're not really focusing on a single character. They're not really editorializing or giving you politics or anything like that. They're just giving you what is happening and sharing what each character is reacting to or what they're experiencing. And I think one of the things about that makes it so effective is that occasionally when there is a big thing happening, a big event in the 90 or so minutes that it was, they really effectively use cinematic language to kind of break from the verite feel and just put you in a character's head. So I guess without spoiling it, a big example would be since you see most events from a lot of different characters' perspectives, there's one explosion that happens at one point where you kind of have to see it from inside the house, see it from outside the house, experience people getting up from it from their own perspectives, and then experience them watching other people get up from it. And the way they kind of pull back and start using cinematic sound design and then cinematic sort of camera moves and isolation, kind of positional, temporal isolation in the same space is really, really cool, and it gives it this gravitas where you can't look away from the fucking screen. It's insane. I really want to see it again. I heard they're playing it in IMAX in a few places, and I really want to see that, but just the sound design alone, if you've ever been shooting, if you lift your earmuff off your ear and you fire a couple times, it's really jarring. And to have this kind of sound design that continually hammers you, and after a certain point, it's war. Some people are going to get injured, and their wails of pain are hammering you. And then there's artillery, happening, and that's hammering you. And it's all of this while all these people who, in real life had to stay focused and calm, or relatively calm, and then execute a series of, kind of decide the importance of, and then execute a series of actions that ultimately resulted in them getting out of where they were. And it's a movie like none other I've ever seen. I think it will go down as one of the great war movies ever made. It just really had an impact on me. I will have to see it again, but I had trouble focusing for a couple hours after I saw it because I just felt so jarred. And not to minimize the experience of people who have been to war, but if that's what I felt after going to a war movie, and I'm a relatively calm and collected person, I can't imagine what it's like coming out of a battlefield. And I know that Ray Mendoza said they're just trying to lay the event out as it happens, but that just kind of gave me a whole new respect for people who have been through that. And I can totally see how, they say people who have actually been in combat don't really like to talk about it, because it's even that this was a movie experience, and I was just kind of taken aback. I was completely silent for an hour or two after I saw it, and it was insane. So definitely would recommend Warfare. I don't think I've seen a movie quite like it. I hope that, Alex Garland is talking about stepping back from directing for a little while. I hope that people's so far positive reaction to this will keep him in the director's chair a little bit, or at least every once in a while. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I don't even usually recommend movies. I'll just tell people, oh, if you liked this might be interesting. But I've been telling all of my movie enthusiast friends and everyone I work with in film production, go see this movie. It is a real cinematic achievement. And if I recall the interview correctly, I think they filmed it in under 6 weeks, which I think is insane given the amount of detail and stuff that went into every single setup and shot. And I don't know, not to spoil anything, but you do see a very small smattering of making of at the end of this movie in the credits. But I would love to see a making of featurette, because I know a lot of the people who are depicted in the movie are real people, if not all of them. And I would love to just see them learning how to move, how to look, how to act like SEALs, because I know that being a Navy SEAL is not something you want to depict lightly or with any sort of cinematic fluff, because it's such a serious job and they have so many qualifications that, I can't even begin to list. So I don't know, it was definitely a fascinating movie, one of the most interesting I've ever seen, especially one of the most interesting I've seen in the last couple of years, and not what I expected as a follow-up to Civil War from Alex Garland. So go see it. I will put together the rest of the intro content for this channel eventually, but I just wanted to come and say these are 2 movies you really want to check out because they're really fascinating. So.